Chapter 1. A New Dawn. Simon Winter and Mara sat together in their rekindled world, their days and nights filled with joy and love, a stark contrast to the chaos and destruction that had once threatened their existence. The world around them continued as it had before the apocalypse, seemingly untouched by the catastrophic events that Simon had navigated through realities to undo. Birds chirped in the morning, the sun rose and set with comforting regularity, and life in all its mundane and miraculous forms flourished. Simon, now free from the burdens of godlike powers and cosmic battles, found a profound joy in simply being with Mara. His heart, which had once been consumed by the necessity of survival and the heavy responsibilities of power, now reveled in the peace that his actions had restored. Every moment with Mara was a reminder of what he had fought for, and why every sacrifice had been worth it. However, as they sat overlooking a serene landscape from their porch one quiet evening, a thoughtful expression crossed Simon's face. Mara noticed the subtle shift in his demeanor, her intuitive gaze meeting his. "What is it, Simon?" she asked gently, her hand finding his. Simon took a deep breath, his eyes reflecting the weight of secrets he had yet to share. "Mara, there's something I need to tell you about," he began, his voice steady but filled with the gravity of his experiences. "The peace we're enjoying now, it almost didn't happen. There was an apocalypse in an alternate reality, one where a lichen curse set everything into motion." Mara listened intently as Simon explained the intricate details of the alternate reality. The rise of supernatural factions, the wars between gods, and how it all traced back to the curse of a single lichen bite. The tale was fantastical, yet imbued with a truth that only Simon could impart, having lived through it all. "And it all started from the curse of a single bite," Simon reiterated, his gaze distant as he remembered the trials he had faced. "I've already put plans in place to make sure this does not happen again in our reality. We have a chance to prevent any such future from unfolding here." Mara nodded, her trust in Simon unwavering. "What do you need to do, Simon?" she asked, ready to support him in whatever came next. Simon turned to her, his resolve clear in his eyes. "I need to go somewhere to rescue an old friend, someone who was pivotal in more ways than one in stopping the chaos. The Alpha," he disclosed, referring to the lichen leader he had raised and who had stood by him through thick and thin in the alternate reality. Mara understood the importance of this mission, not just to Simon, but to ensuring the continued stability of their world. "Then we'll do this together," she said, her voice filled with determination. As they planned their next steps, Simon felt a renewed sense of purpose. The task ahead was not just a rescue mission, but a preventive strike against potential threats to their restored peace. Together, Simon and Mara prepared to step out into the world, not as survivors of a dark past, but as architects of a hopeful future. The guardian of the curse. In the flickering candlelight of their ancestral home, the Graham family gathered around an old wooden table, their voices low as they murmured an ancient protection prayer. Passed down through generations, this prayer was a solemn ritual, one meant to safeguard them and the world from the curse they were bound to guard. Outside, the storm raged fiercely, lightning flashing across the sky, each burst momentarily revealing the sinister silhouette of the creature chained in the cellar below. With each flash, the creature rattled its chains, a haunting sound that spoke of centuries-old fury and desperation for release. Upstairs, the Grahams continued their prayers, the atmosphere thick with a mix of fear and duty. John, the head of the family, felt the weight of his ancestors' legacy heavily upon his shoulders. They were the protectors, tasked with keeping the beast locked away in the cellar, a beast that had once terrorized the land until it was subdued and bound by powerful magic. Suddenly, a knock at the door sliced through the storm's howl, startling the family. John approached the door cautiously, his heart pounding. On the doorstep stood a stranger, his clothes drenched, his eyes pleading for refuge from the storm. After a moment's hesitation, driven by the ingrained duty to protect the secret within their home, John refused the man entry and slammed the door in his face. The rejected stranger, Tom, scanned the Graham family's grounds for any other shelter from the unforgiving storm. He spotted an old tool shed and made his way towards it, hoping for at least a dry place to rest for the night. As Tom settled into the cramped space, trying to make himself comfortable among the musty smells and garden tools, a peculiar noise caught his attention. It sounded like chains, followed by a dog-like whimper. Curious and concerned, Tom stepped out into the rain, following the sounds to a small opening at the side of the house. The growling and the clashing of chains grew louder as he approached. "I'll help you, boy," Tom called out softly, thinking perhaps a dog had been left out in the storm. Just as he was about to reach his hand into the opening, a voice stopped him cold. "I would not do that if I were you." Tom jerked his head up, and in the brief illumination from a lightning strike, he saw the dark outline of a man standing near him, his face obscured by a chrome mask. The mask shimmered eerily under the storm's intermittent lighting, giving the man an otherworldly appearance. Frightened by the sudden appearance and the chilling warning, Tom scrambled back, his heart racing. Without a second glance, he ran off into the night, the image of the masked man etched into his memory, a stark reminder that some shelters are far more dangerous than the storms they protect us from. The release. Inside the ancient home of the Graham family, the continuous chanting of prayers created a soothing rhythm that echoed through the walls, calming the beast trapped in the cellar. These prayers, passed from father to son over centuries, held the power to pacify the primal rage of the creature below. As John Graham led his family in the ritual, there came another knock at the door. Annoyed and thinking it was the stranger from before, John initially ignored it. However, the knocking persisted, growing louder and more insistent. Finally, the door swung open. A man wearing a chrome mask stepped into the threshold of the ancient home. John's instinctual fear erupted into a scream. "You must leave here." "No," the masked man, Winter, responded firmly. "I have come to relieve you of your burden. You are no longer the keepers of the Alpha. I am." Without waiting for permission, Winter moved decisively towards the cellar. John instinctively reached out to stop him, but found himself frozen mid-step, immobilized by Winter's supernatural influence. Outside, the sky growled with thunder, and lightning flashed, mirroring the tension inside the house. As Winter began to unbolt the heavy cellar door, the roar and growls from behind it reverberated off the stone walls. He stepped inside, and a single flash of lightning briefly illuminated the creature's face. A primal, huge, powerful werewolf capable of tearing any man apart. It pulled at its chains aggressively as it roared at Winter, its primal rage driving it to attack. "Hello, old friend," Winter said calmly, his voice cutting through the growls. At his words, the Alpha's rage began to subside. This creature was not merely the Alpha from the lore of the Graham family. It was the Alpha Winter had raised from a cub in an alternate reality. Somehow, Winter had replaced the original Alpha with this one when reconstructing the world. Approaching the beast, Winter reached out and embraced it. The Alpha, every fiber of its being screaming to tear this man apart, instead hesitated, then reciprocated the embrace. Deep within its mind lay buried memories of Winter, memories of a father figure who had nurtured and protected it. This connection, forged in another reality, had transcended worlds, bringing with it a profound bond. As they stood there, man and beast locked in an unlikely embrace, the Graham family watched in stunned silence from the top of the cellar steps. The centuries-old burden of guarding the Alpha was lifted, and a new chapter began. Not just for them, but for the Alpha and Winter as well. This moment marked a turning point, a resolution of past curses, and the beginning of a reconciliation between what had once been and what could now be. Winter, having restored his friend and confidant, now faced the task of integrating the Alpha into this new, peaceful reality, ensuring that the horrors of the past would never re-emerge. Shadows of New Orleans. In the sultry darkness of New Orleans, a shadow moved with supernatural grace, slipping through the night like a whisper of smoke. It climbed skillfully up a wall to an open window, entering the quiet room with a predatory silence. Inside, a young man lay sleeping alone in his bed, unaware of the danger that had just permeated his sanctuary. The shadow materialized into a more defined form, Serana. With a swift, fluid motion, she gorged herself on her latest victim, the life draining from him unnoticed in the deep slumber of the night. Satisfied, Serana slipped out of the home, her shadowy figure merging effortlessly with the surrounding darkness. She made her way back to her home, a private estate nestled miles away from any neighbors, a haven where she could relax and feel secure in her solitude. As she arrived at her sanctuary, a voice broke the silence, sending a chill through the air. "So, this is where you came from," murmured a voice from the shadows. Startled, Serana's eyes narrowed, and her fangs bared instinctively in anticipation of an attack. From the darkness emerged a figure, Elder. His presence was as commanding as it was unexpected. "Who are you? Are we enemies?" Serana demanded, her stance defensive, yet poised for any necessary confrontation. "Enemies? We are the best of friends," Elder replied, his voice carrying a calm assurance that contrasted sharply with the tension of the moment. Recognizing the need to clarify his unexpected appearance, Elder quickly relayed his story. "I was trapped in the ice, chased there many years ago, my fate to be released many years from now. Then, he, Nocturna, spoke to me. He awakened me. He told me how we had been wronged, and he needed me." Elder's revelation hinted at a deeper narrative, one of betrayal and revival. "Then I remembered," he continued, "and my first thought was of you." His words hung in the air, filled with a mix of nostalgia and unresolved tension. Serana, though initially taken aback by the sudden intrusion, began to lower her guard as the familiarity of Eldor's presence and their shared past came rushing back. The realization that they were both manipulated and now potentially allies in a new reality prompted a cautious reevaluation of her stance. Their reunion, under the eerie glow of the moonlight filtering through the branches of ancient oaks, marked the beginning of a new chapter. As they stood in the quiet of Serana's estate, the night whispered of old bonds rekindled and new paths to be forged. Elder and Serana, once key players in a cosmic game manipulated by higher powers, now found themselves as potential collaborators in a world that had dramatically shifted around them. Together, they would need to navigate this new existence, understanding their roles and the potential alliances and enemies that lay in wait. The night in New Orleans had brought them back together, but the dawn might bring new challenges and opportunities as they sought to understand their place in this reshaped reality. The ritual of remembrance. In the seclusion of Serana's private estate, under the cloak of night, Elder prepared to perform a ritual, one steeped in ancient magic and secrecy. He arranged the necessary artifacts in a precise formation around Serana, who sat calmly, her eyes closed in anticipation. Eldur began chanting in a low, resonant voice, his words weaving through the air like threads of an unseen tapestry. As the ritual progressed, a soft luminescence enveloped Serana, the light flickering with each syllable Eldur pronounced. The energy in the room grew thick, almost palpable, as the boundaries between past and present blurred. Serana's mind was guided by the ritual's power, journeying back to the alternate realm where battles were fought in a cosmic game orchestrated by gods. When the ritual concluded, Serana's eyes snapped open, a flood of lost memories now restored. Her expression shifted from tranquility to shock, and then to a profound realization. "We lost," she said slowly, the weight of the memories pressing down on her. "No, my dear, they cheated," Eldur responded with a slight smile, his voice carrying both reassurance and a hint of manipulation. "But Winter returned this reality as it was, which means Nocturna is with us. Winter had the choice to rebuild this reality without the gods, but for some reason he chose to bring them back, which means we still have a chance to win." Eldur's words were calculated, aimed at rekindling a fire of ambition within Serana. "We can gather the elders and take this world before any of the others realize what transpired. Technically, no god won, so the prize is still up for grabs," he explained, his plan unfolding with each word. "And what of Winter?" Serana asked, her tone laced with a mix of concern and curiosity. The memories of Winter's power and his decisive actions in the alternate realm were fresh in her mind. "He has given up his power. He no longer possesses the power of the gods," Eldur informed her, his voice tinged with a satisfaction that did not go unnoticed. The implication was clear. Without Winter's godlike abilities, he was no longer a direct threat to their ambitions. Serana absorbed this information, her mind racing with the possibilities now open to them. The game was still on, the board reset, but the players modified, with Eldur's guidance and the knowledge of what had been and what could yet be. Together, Eldur and Serana began to plot their next moves. The night's revelations had not only restored lost memories, but had also reawakened a strategic cunning in Serana, one that would be necessary in the days to come. As dawn approached, the pair were already deep in discussions, plotting to rally the elders and reassess their allies and enemies in this familiar yet entirely new world. Their conversation continued into the early hours, under the same stars that had witnessed the rise and fall of gods and men in countless realities. For Eldur and Serana, this was more than a second chance. It was an opportunity to rewrite the end of their story. The whisper of Necros. In the sterile environment of his laboratory, filled with the hum of machinery and the faint chemical scent of progress, Stephen Lestat was engrossed in his latest series of experiments. His focus was on gene technology and biological research, areas where he had hoped to push the boundaries of science. The lab was a sanctuary of intellect and curiosity, a place detached from the supernatural chaos that had once consumed the world. "Stephen," a voice suddenly erupted from the darkness, causing Stephen to jerk upright, his eyes scanning the shadowy corners of the lab. "Who said that?" he demanded, his voice echoing slightly in the quiet space. "It is I, Necros," the voice returned, more pronounced this time, as if it were emanating from the very walls around him. "Necros? Who is that?" Stephen asked, his confusion apparent. The name felt foreign, yet vaguely resonant, as if it were a forgotten dream surfacing in his consciousness. "Do not be alarmed," the voice continued, its tone both commanding and eerily soothing. "Soon I shall return you to your glorious self. But first, you must continue your experiments on the reincarnation of dead tissue. It is not as hopeless as you once thought. Now you have me to aid you." Stephen, ever the scientist, was momentarily puzzled by the mention of returning to his glorious self, but the promise of advancing his research intrigued him more than the mysterious origins of the voice. His scientific mind buzzed with questions about the methods and possibilities, rather than the ethics or the strange nature of this unseen guide. Intrigued by the potential of what Necros suggested, Stephen's thoughts quickly turned to the technical challenges of reanimating dead tissue. The concept wasn't new to him. It was a frontier he had dabbled in, bordered by the fine lines between genius and madness. Yet, now instilled with new knowledge and insight from Necros, Stephen felt a renewed vigor to pursue this avenue. He began to draft plans for a virus, one intricately designed to reanimate dead tissue. This virus would be his masterpiece, a creation that could blur the lines between life and death. The more he delved into the work, the more consumed he became. Necros' voice continued to guide him, providing insights that no ordinary scientist could have imagined, insights that seemed to echo from an otherworldly understanding of biology and physics. As Stephen worked, the lab around him seemed to grow darker, the shadows deeper. The world outside the lab felt increasingly distant, as if Stephen were moving further away from reality and deeper into a realm where only his experiments and the voice of Necros existed. He was lost in the knowledge being imparted to him, his every waking moment devoted to the creation of the virus. Little did Stephen know, his work, spurred by Necros' whisperings, was setting the stage for something far beyond ordinary scientific discovery. This virus, fueled by the dark intentions of a resurrected god, could potentially unleash consequences that Stephen had not yet begun to comprehend. As he toiled in his lab, the boundary between helper and manipulator blurred, with Necros shaping a future that could once again alter the fabric of reality. Bonds beyond realities. Winter sat with Mara in his private retreat, a secluded villa nestled away from the nearest town, a place of peace and quiet reflection. He looked at her with a soft expression, his voice gentle yet filled with excitement. "Come, Mara, I want you to meet him," he said. "Is it safe, Simon?" Mara asked, a hint of concern in her voice. "Yes, my love. He means so much to me. He was the one thing that kept my humanity intact in that other place. Without him, I would have lost all compassion and empathy, drifting into a world governed solely by logic," Simon explained, his words revealing the deep emotional bond he shared with this unseen presence. On Winter's estate stood a unique building, den-like in structure, blending naturally into the surrounding wilderness. Mara followed Simon as they entered the building. Inside, Simon gave a whistle, and in response, a powerful roar echoed back, vibrating through the air. They walked deeper into the darkness of the den. Suddenly, from out of the shadows, a giant beast leapt forward and pinned Winter to the ground. Mara screamed in fear, but her panic turned to surprise as Winter laughed, his voice filled with joy. "You big furball," he chuckled. The Alpha, recognizing its old friend, let Winter up and nudged him affectionately with its massive head. Mara stood back a moment, taking in the sight of the formidable creature. "My goodness, you are as majestic as Simon said," she remarked, awe colouring her tone. The Alpha raised its head, almost as if showing pride. Winter laughed. "Don't tell him that. He'll get a big head." He then turned to Mara, introducing the two. "This is Mara. Mara, this is..." He paused, realizing he never really had a name for the Alpha. "This is my son," he finally said. Mara looked at Winter and then at the Alpha, her initial fear replaced by a warm smile of understanding. The Alpha, ferocious, primal, and huge, yet here, was gentle and protective. nudged Winter again as if to acknowledge the introduction. Then, Winter's expression turned somber, a heavy heart evident in his eyes. "Will you feel it too, old friend?" he said softly to the Alpha. He turned to Mara, explaining the weight of his choices in reforming this reality. "When I reformed this reality, I had the choice to remove the gods once and for all, to eradicate the evil of this world, but doing so would have also removed their creations, the elders, the undead, and the lichens." He sighed deeply, his gaze shifting between Mara and the Alpha. No matter how much I desired a perfect world, it couldn't truly be perfect without him. He gestured towards the Alpha. "So now, I stand with you both, and we shall face what comes to us together. And rest assured, it's coming." Mara reached out, taking Winter's hand, her eyes filled with a new understanding and resolve. Together, with the Alpha by their side, they prepared to confront whatever challenges lay ahead, united by bonds that transcended worlds and realities. The prelude to unrest. As the serene twilight enveloped Winter's villa, casting long shadows over the peaceful landscape, the tranquility of this idyllic scene belied the brewing storm. The world, freshly sculpted by Winter's hand, balanced precariously on the edge of a knife, with old powers awakening and new alliances forming in the shadows. Hidden in the folds of darkness, the elders, led by Elder and Serana, are regrouping. With memories of past manipulations and battles fresh in their minds, they plot to reclaim their influence. Their ancient knowledge and supernatural prowess position them as formidable players in the unfolding saga. As they marshal their forces, the question remains: will their renewed presence stabilize the realm, or will it plunge it back into chaos? In a lab shrouded in secrecy, Stephen Lestat delves deeper into the realms of science and the supernatural. Guided by the whispers of Necros, he edges closer to a breakthrough that could redefine life and death. The undead, once mere pawns in a larger game, might soon rise anew under his command. Will his creations be the harbingers of salvation or agents of destruction? Now free from the chains of his past, the Alpha stands beside Winter and Mara, a symbol of strength and resilience. But as the world shifts around him, his primal instincts and deep-seated loyalty will be tested. How will the Alpha navigate this new reality, where the lines between friend and foe blur, and every shadow could hide a threat? Together, Mara and Winter face the future, their bond forged through trials in twisted realities. As the architects of this new world, they must decide how to protect their creation without falling into the traps of their predecessors. With enemies at the gate and the fabric of reality at stake, their choices will determine the fate of all. As the curtain rises on the next chapter of Crimson Dawn, one question looms large. Will the world once again be overrun by the machinations of the supernatural? Or will the efforts of Winter, Mara, and their allies maintain the fragile peace they fought so hard to achieve? Stay tuned for Part 7, where ancient forces collide with modern resolve in a battle to shape the destiny of the realm. The adventure continues, and the realm waits with bated breath to see if the dawn will bring light, or if the crimson shadows will engulf the world once more.
Greetings, mortal. It's Serana. I do hope you have been enjoying Crimson Dawn and are looking forward to me and Elder finally gaining victory. We are, of course, the most powerful. Lycan, undead, humans, and even Winter will fall before us. So, look out for future episodes coming soon. And don't forget to subscribe to the Professor Shadow channel. Unless you want a visit from me, in the night. In the meantime, check out this other video by Professor Shadow.